The stagecoach rattled into Wheatland, Wyoming, on a blistering June afternoon in 1878, carrying a woman who had learned that some scars never showed on the surface. Clara Morgan pressed her gloved hand against the window, watching the dusty street unfold before her eyes, and wondered if running this far would ever be far enough. The bruises on her ribs had faded to yellow, but the memory of her late husband's fists remained as fresh as yesterday's bread. She had answered an advertisement for a mail order bride because becoming someone else's wife seemed like the only escape from the ghost of the man who had nearly killed her before typhoid finished what his cruelty had started. The thought made her stomach churn, but she forced herself to breathe slowly, evenly, the way she had taught herself during those long nights when Thomas would come home, drunk and angry. The stagecoach lurched to a stop outside the general store, and Clara gathered her worn carpetbag with trembling fingers. She had written to Xander Kensington, a rancher who needed a wife to help manage his home and perhaps bear him children someday. His letters had been kind, measured, never demanding more than she felt capable of giving. He had promised her safety, shelter, and respect, three things that felt more valuable than gold after what she had endured. Clara was 24 years old, though she often felt ancient, and Xander had written that he was 29, a reasonable age difference that did not make her uncomfortable. She stepped down from the coach onto the wooden boardwalk, her simple gray traveling dress already coated with a fine layer of dust. The street bustled with activity despite the oppressive heat. Cowboys herded cattle through the main thoroughfare, their whoops and hollers cutting through the air. Women in calico dresses hurried from shop to shop with baskets over their arms. A blacksmith's hammer rang out in steady rhythm from somewhere nearby. Clara scanned the crowd, searching for a man who matched Xander's description, tall with dark hair and broad shoulders, likely wearing working clothes since he had mentioned he would come straight from the ranch. Her heart hammered against her ribcage, and she hated how fear had become her constant companion. "Mrs. Morgan?" a deep voice said from behind her. Clara spun around, her hand instinctively moving to protect her midsection, a defensive gesture she could not quite break. The man standing before her removed his hat, revealing dark brown hair that curled slightly at the ends, damp with sweat from the heat. His eyes were a startling shade of gray, like storm clouds gathering on the horizon, and they studied her with an intensity that made her want to look away. He was handsome in a rugged way, with sun-weathered skin and a strong jaw shadowed with stubble. His shoulders were indeed broad, straining against his cotton work shirt, and his hands looked capable, calloused from years of labor. "Mr. Kensington?" Clara managed, her voice coming out smaller than she intended. "Xander, please," he said, and his smile was genuine, reaching those unusual eyes. "I am glad you arrived safely. The journey from Missouri must have been difficult." "It was long," Clara admitted, not wanting to elaborate on how every jolt of the stagecoach had made her ribs ache, how she had flinched every time a male passenger spoke too loudly or moved too quickly. "But I am here now." Xander noticed her protective posture, the way she held herself as though expecting a blow, and something flickered across his face. Concern, perhaps, or recognition. "Let me take your bag," he offered gently, waiting for her permission rather than simply grabbing it. That small gesture nearly undid her. Clara nodded and released her grip on the carpetbag, watching as Xander hefted it easily. He gestured toward a wagon parked near the livery stable, and she fell into step beside him, maintaining a careful distance. She could smell leather and hay and honest sweat, so different from Thomas's sour whiskey stench that it made her dizzy with relief. "The ranch is about 5 miles outside town," Xander explained as he helped her into the wagon, his touch on her elbow feather light. "There and gone again. I raise cattle mostly, some horses. I have 2 ranch hands who live in the bunkhouse, good men who keep to themselves. The house is not fancy, but it is solid and comfortable. I hope you will find it suitable." "I am sure it will be fine," Clara said, arranging her skirts as Xander climbed up beside her and took the reins. She was acutely aware of his proximity, the heat radiating from his body in the close confines of the wagon seat. Her muscles tensed involuntarily. Xander noticed her discomfort and shifted slightly away, giving her more space. I want you to know, he said quietly as he urged the horses forward, that I understand this arrangement is unusual. You do not know me, and I do not expect you to trust me immediately. I meant what I wrote in my letters. You will have your own room until you decide otherwise. There is no pressure, no obligation beyond what you feel comfortable with. Clara's throat tightened with emotion. Thank you, she whispered. She had not expected such consideration, such patience. Thomas had never asked her permission for anything. They rode in silence for a while, leaving the bustle of Wheatland behind them. The landscape opened up into rolling plains dotted with sagebrush and wildflowers. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still capped with snow despite the summer heat. Clara found herself relaxing incrementally, lulled by the rhythmic clop of horse hooves and the vast openness of the Wyoming territory. There was something healing about all this space, this endless sky. What made you decide to advertise for a wife? Clara asked, surprising herself with the question. She had spent so long being silent, swallowing her curiosity and opinions, that speaking freely felt foreign. Xander considered her question, his hands steady on the reins. Loneliness, I suppose, he said honestly. I have been running the ranch for 6 years now, since my father passed. My mother died when I was young. I have built something good here, something I am proud of, but at the end of each day, I return to an empty house. I wanted someone to share it with, someone to build a life alongside. I am not looking for a housekeeper or a cook, though help with those things would be welcome. I am looking for a partner, a companion. Does that make sense? Yes, Clara said softly. It made more sense than he probably realized. She had been looking for the same thing, though she had learned too late that Thomas was not capable of partnership, only possession. What about you? Xander asked, glancing at her. What made you answer my advertisement? Clara had prepared an answer for this question, a careful half-truth that would not reveal too much. My husband passed away 3 months ago from typhoid fever, she said, which was accurate, even if incomplete. He left me with very little, and I had no family to turn to. I needed a fresh start, somewhere far from Missouri and all its memories. I am sorry for your loss, Xander said, and Clara could hear the sincerity in his voice even if she did not mourn Thomas the way a widow should. Loss is a hard burden to carry. Yes, Clara agreed, thinking of all the different kinds of loss a person could experience. She had lost her innocence, her trust, her sense of safety long before Thomas died. His death had been a release, not a tragedy, though she could never say such a thing aloud. The ranch appeared on the horizon, a collection of sturdy buildings clustered together like a small village. The main house was built from timber with a wide front porch, practical but well-maintained. A barn dominated the nearby landscape, freshly painted red with white trim. She could see cattle grazing in fenced pastures and horses in a corral, their coats gleaming in the afternoon sun. It was more prosperous than she had expected, evidence of Xander's hard work and dedication. Welcome home, Xander said as he pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the house. Home. The word resonated through Clara's chest, both hopeful and terrifying. She let Xander help her down from the wagon, and this time she did not flinch quite as much when his hands circled her waist. He released her immediately and grabbed her carpet bag, leading her up the porch steps. The front door was unlocked, and he pushed it open to reveal a spacious main room with a stone fireplace, comfortable furniture, and windows that let in generous amounts of light. The kitchen is through there, Xander said, pointing to a doorway on the right. My room is upstairs, first door on the left. I have prepared the room across the hall for you. It has a good bed, a wardrobe, and a washstand. There is a pump in the kitchen for water and an outhouse behind the property, though I am hoping to install indoor plumbing within the year. Clara set down her reticule and looked around, taking in the details. The house was clean, but clearly lacked a woman's touch, functional rather than decorated. She could see possibilities everywhere, places where curtains or rugs or small touches of beauty could transform the space into something warmer. "It is lovely," she said honestly. "Better than I expected." "I will show you to your room," Xander said. "You must be exhausted from your journey. I will give you time to rest and freshen up. Supper is usually around 6. I am a passable cook, but I will not pretend to be anything special. If you have the energy, you are welcome to join me. If not, I can bring something up to you." "I will come down," Clara said. She did not want to hide away, even though part of her wanted to barricade herself in her room and process everything that had happened. She followed Xander up the stairs, her hand trailing along the smooth banister. He opened the door to her room, and Clara caught her breath. It was simple but charming, with a brass bed covered in a colorful quilt, a sturdy wardrobe, and a small table with a basin and pitcher. Lace curtains hung at the window, clearly new, and wildflowers sat in a jar on the nightstand. "You put flowers in here," Clara said, emotion thickening her voice. Xander looked almost embarrassed. "I thought it might make the room feel more welcoming. If you do not like them, I can remove them." "No, please," Clara said quickly. "They are perfect, thank you." Xander nodded and set her carpet bag on the floor near the wardrobe. "I will leave you to settle in. Take all the time you need." He paused in the doorway, his expression serious. "Clara, I want you to feel safe here. If I do anything that makes you uncomfortable, I need you to tell me. Can you do that?" Clara met his eyes, those storm cloud gray eyes that seemed to see too much. "I will try," she said, which was the most honest answer she could give. After Xander left, closing the door softly behind him, Clara sank onto the bed and finally allowed herself to feel the full weight of her exhaustion. Her body ached from days of travel, but more than that, her soul ached from years of surviving. She touched the flowers gently, their petals soft beneath her fingertips, and let herself hope, just for a moment, that maybe this could work. Maybe she could build something new here in Wyoming, something better than what she had left behind. She unpacked her few belongings, hanging her dresses in the wardrobe and arranging her sparse toiletries on the washstand. Everything she owned fit in that single carpet bag, a sobering reminder of how little she had managed to salvage from her previous life. Thomas had controlled their money, doling out coins for household expenses with a miserly hand, and when he died, she had discovered they were deeply in debt. She had sold everything of value to pay his creditors and had left Missouri with barely enough for the stagecoach fare. Clara poured water into the basin and washed her face and hands, scrubbing away the travel dust. She loosened her hair from its tight bun, massaging her scalp where pins had dug into her skin, then repinned it more loosely. Her reflection in the small mirror showed a woman with dark circles under her green eyes. Her brown hair shot through with a few premature gray strands. She looked tired, beaten down, older than her years, but perhaps here, in this place, she could recover some of what she had lost. The afternoon light slanted through the lace curtains, casting delicate patterns on the floor. Clara lay down on the bed, intending to rest for just a few minutes, and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. When she woke, the light had shifted to the golden hue of early evening. Clara sat up abruptly, disoriented for a moment before remembering where she was. The ranch. Xander, her new life. She quickly tidied her appearance and made her way downstairs, following the sound of activity in the kitchen. Xander stood at the stove, stirring something in a large pot. He had changed his shirt and washed up, his hair still damp and combed back. He looked up when she entered, and his face brightened. "Good, you are awake. I hope you rested well. I am making stew, nothing fancy but filling. There is fresh bread from town as well." "It smells wonderful," Clara said. And it did, rich and savory, making her stomach growl. She could not remember the last time she had eaten a proper meal. "Can I help with anything?" "You could set the table if you like," Xander said, gesturing to a cupboard. "Plates are in there, utensils in the drawer below." Clara busied herself with the task, grateful to have something to do with her hands. She found simple ceramic plates and sturdy utensils, setting two places at the small kitchen table. It felt strangely domestic, almost intimate, sharing this space with a man she had just met. But Xander moved around the kitchen with comfortable confidence, not crowding her, giving her room to breathe. They sat down to eat, and the stew was as good as it smelled, thick with beef and vegetables. Clara ate slowly, savoring each bite. Xander ate with the hearty appetite of a man who worked hard physically, but he did not rush her or make her feel self-conscious about her smaller portions. "Tell me about the ranch," Clara said, wanting to know more about the life she would be living here. "How many cattle do you run? What are your ranch hands like?" Xander seemed pleased by her interest. "I run about 300 head right now, though I hope to expand. The hands are brothers, Sam and Robert Fletcher. They have worked for me for 4 years, reliable and hardworking. They are respectful men, and I have already told them that you are to be treated with courtesy at all times. They take their meals in the bunkhouse unless I specifically invite them to the main house for holidays or special occasions." "What will my responsibilities be?" Clara asked. She wanted clear expectations, no surprises. "Whatever you feel capable of handling," Xander said. "I would appreciate help with cooking and keeping the house, though I have been managing on my own, so there is no pressure. If you are interested, I could use assistance with the account books. My father taught me to read and write and do figures, but I am not naturally inclined toward paperwork. Beyond that, this is your home. You should feel free to make changes, to put your stamp on things." Clara nodded, absorbing this information. It sounded reasonable, even generous. "I am good with numbers," she offered. "I managed the household accounts before." She did not add that Thomas had punished her when the numbers did not add up to his liking, even when his own drinking and gambling had caused the shortfalls. "That would be a great help," Xander said. He hesitated, then added, "Clara, I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Are you afraid of me?" The directness of the question caught her off guard. She could lie, pretend everything was fine, but something about Xander's open expression made her want to tell the truth. "Not afraid exactly," she said slowly, "but I am wary. I do not know you well enough yet to feel completely at ease." "That is fair," Xander said. "I noticed earlier that you flinch sometimes, that you hold yourself like someone expecting pain. I want you to know that I will never raise a hand to you, never hurt you intentionally. I was raised to believe that a man who strikes a woman is no man at all." Tears pricked at Clara's eyes, unexpected and unwelcome. She blinked them back. "My husband was not a kind man," she admitted quietly. "He had a temper, especially when he drank. I learned to be careful, to stay out of his way when he was in certain moods. It is a hard habit to break." Xander's jaw tightened and anger flashed in his eyes, but Clara could tell instinctively that it was not directed at her. "I am sorry you went through that," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "No one deserves to live in fear. I meant what I said in my letters. You are safe here, Clara. I will prove it to you through my actions, for as long as it takes." They finished their meal in silence, but it was a comfortable silence, not tense or awkward. Clara helped Xander clean the dishes, and they worked side by side at the sink, falling into an easy rhythm. When everything was put away, Xander excused himself to check on the livestock one last time before dark, and Clara wandered into the main room, drawn to the bookshelf she had noticed earlier. The collection was modest, but well chosen, a mix of practical volumes about ranching and animal husbandry, along with novels and poetry. Clara pulled out a worn copy of Jane Eyre and settled into one of the armchairs, losing herself in the familiar story. She had always loved to read, but Thomas had considered it a waste of time, and she had learned to hide her books, to only read when he was out of the house. Xander returned as dusk was falling and found Clara curled in the chair with the book. "You like to read," he observed, sounding pleased. "Very much," Clara said. "I hope you do not mind me borrowing this." "Not at all. Everything here is yours now, too. I enjoy reading as well, though I do not get as much time for it as I would like during busy seasons. They talked for a while longer about books and other small things, carefully feeling their way toward friendship. When Clara's eyes began to droop, Xander suggested she head up to bed, and she did not argue. She was emotionally drained from the day's events, from holding herself together through so many new experiences. In her room, Clara changed into her nightgown and brushed out her hair, then climbed into the comfortable bed. The sheets smelled like sunshine and fresh air, and the quilt was warm without being stifling. She listened to the sounds of the house, the creak of floorboards as Xander moved around downstairs, the distant lowing of cattle, the whisper of wind through the eaves. For the first time in years, she felt the possibility of peace. The next morning, Clara woke to sunlight streaming through her window and the smell of coffee brewing. She dressed quickly in a simple calico work dress and went downstairs to find Xander already preparing breakfast. He looked up with a smile that was becoming familiar. "Good morning. I hope you slept well." "Better than I have in a long time," Clara admitted. She poured herself coffee and joined him at the stove. "What can I do?" They fell into a routine surprisingly quickly. Clara took over most of the cooking and cleaning, finding satisfaction in making the house more of a home. She sewed curtains for the windows, planted an herb garden near the kitchen door, and began tackling the account books with methodical precision. Xander worked long days with his cattle and horses, but he always made time to sit with Clara in the evenings, talking about their days, sharing stories from their pasts. Clara learned that Xander had grown up on this land, that his father had carved the ranch out of wilderness through sheer determination. His mother had died from influenza when Xander was only 7, and his father had never remarried, pouring all his energy into his son and his ranch. Xander had inherited both when his father died of a heart attack 6 years ago. He spoke of his parents with affection and respect, painting a picture of a childhood that, while sometimes hard, had been filled with love. In turn, Clara shared carefully edited stories of her own past. She told him about growing up in a small Missouri town, about her father who had been a schoolteacher, and her mother who had died during Clara's adolescence. She spoke of her marriage to Thomas, though she kept the worst details to herself, not ready yet to expose all her wounds. Xander listened without judgment, and Clara found herself relaxing more each day, her defensive posture gradually softening. 3 weeks into her time at the ranch, Clara woke in the middle of the night screaming, thrashing against nightmares that had Thomas's face and fists. She heard footsteps pounding down the hall, and then Xander was at her door, knocking urgently. "Clara, are you all right?" She was shaking, her nightgown soaked with sweat, her heart racing. "Come in," she managed to say, her voice hoarse. Xander opened the door but stayed on the threshold, backlit by the lamp he carried. "You were screaming. Did you have a nightmare?" "Yes," Clara whispered. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to still the trembling. "Can I come closer?" Xander asked. "Or would you prefer I stay here?" "You can come closer," Clara said. She needed to see his face clearly, to remind herself that she was here in Wyoming, not back in that terrible house in Missouri. Xander set the lamp on the nightstand and sat carefully on the edge of her bed, maintaining a respectful distance. "Do you want to talk about it?" Clara shook her head. "Just old memories. They come sometimes when I sleep." "Memories of your husband," Xander said. Not quite a question. "Yes." Clara's voice broke on the word. "He hurt me, Xander. Not just once, but many times. He would drink, and then he would get angry about something, anything, and he would hit me. I learned to cover the bruises, to make excuses when people asked. I felt so ashamed, like it was somehow my fault, like if I could just be better, quieter, more careful, he would stop." Xander's hands clenched into fists on his thighs. "It was not your fault. None of it was your fault. The only person responsible for his actions was him." "I know that logically," Clara said, wiping at her tears. "But knowing it and believing it are different things." "I have these wounds, Xander. these places inside me that never fully healed. Some days I think I am getting better, and then something triggers a memory, and I am right back there feeling helpless and afraid. Let me help you, Xander said softly. Let me help you heal. I may not be able to fix what is broken, but I can be here, steady, until you find your strength again. Clara looked at him, this man who had shown her nothing but kindness and patience, and felt something shift in her chest. Why are you being so good to me? She asked. You could have married any woman. You did not sign up for someone as damaged as I am. You are not damaged, Xander said firmly. You are a survivor, and I am being good to you because that is what you deserve, what every person deserves. Besides, he added, his voice softening, I care about you, Clara. These past few weeks getting to know you, seeing your strength and your gentle spirit, watching you transform this house into a home, I have come to care for you deeply. Clara's breath caught. You care for me? Very much, Xander confirmed. I know our arrangement started as a practical matter, but for me, it has become something more. I understand if you do not feel the same way. I am not asking you to. Not yet. I just wanted you to know that you are not alone in this. Whatever you need, however long it takes, I am here. Something warm unfurled in Clara's chest, something she had thought Thomas had destroyed forever. Hope, affection, the beginning of something that might someday become love. I care for you too, she admitted. I have been afraid to let myself feel it, afraid that it might turn into what I had before, but you are nothing like Thomas. You have been kind and patient and respectful. You have made me feel safe. That is a gift I did not think I would ever have again. Xander reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused, his grip gentle but firm. We will take this at whatever pace you need, he said. There is no rush. We have time. Clara squeezed his hand, holding on like he was an anchor in a storm. They sat together in the lamplight, not speaking, just being present for each other. Eventually, Clara's trembling subsided and exhaustion pulled at her again. Xander noticed and stood, releasing her hand reluctantly. Try to get some more sleep, he said. I will leave my door open. If you need anything, just call out. Thank you, Clara said, for everything. After Xander left, Clara lay back down, and this time when she closed her eyes, she did not see Thomas's face. She saw Xander's storm cloud eyes, his gentle smile, his strong hands that would never hurt her. She slept peacefully for the rest of the night. The weeks turned into months, and summer gave way to autumn. The Wyoming landscape transformed, painting itself in shades of gold and crimson. Clara felt herself transforming too, slowly becoming more confident, more herself. She laughed more easily now, sang while she worked, no longer flinched at sudden movements or loud noises. Xander's steady presence was healing her in ways she had not thought possible. One crisp October morning, Clara was hanging laundry on the line when she noticed Xander working in the corral with a young horse. The animal was skittish, dancing away every time Xander approached, but he did not lose patience. He spoke in low, soothing tones, moving slowly, letting the horse come to him on its own terms. Clara watched, fascinated by his gentle persistence, the way he seemed to understand that trust could not be forced, only earned. It struck her suddenly that this was how Xander had been with her, giving her space and time, never pushing, always waiting for her to come to him when she was ready. The realization made her heart ache with affection. She finished hanging the laundry and walked toward the corral, her skirts swishing in the dry grass. Xander looked up when he heard her approach, his face brightening. Come to watch me get humbled by a 2-year-old filly? He called. Clara laughed and climbed up to sit on the fence rail. I came to see the famous horse whisperer at work. Famous, am I? Xander grinned. He returned his attention to the filly, who was watching him with wary brown eyes. Easy girl, he murmured. No one is going to hurt you. I just want to be your friend. The horse took a tentative step forward, then another. Xander held out his hand, palm up, letting her sniff him. The filly's nostrils flared, and then she nickered softly, pressing her soft nose into Xander's palm. He stroked her face gently, praising her. There you go. That was not so scary, was it? You are good with her, Clara observed. Animals respond to patience, Xander said. They can sense when you are genuine, when you mean them no harm. It is not so different from people, I suppose. No, Clara agreed softly. It is not. Xander glanced at her, understanding passing between them. He finished his work with the filly and came to stand beside the fence, close enough that Clara could feel his warmth. Clara, I have been thinking, he began, his voice carrying a note of nervousness she rarely heard. We have been married in the eyes of the law for 3 months now, but we have lived more like friendly strangers sharing a house. I am not complaining, he added quickly. I told you I would give you all the time you needed, and I meant it. But I find myself wanting more. I want to court you properly, to win your heart if I can. Clara's pulse quickened. Court me? Yes, Xander said. Take you on buggy rides, bring you flowers, walk with you in the evenings. All the things a man does when he is trying to convince a woman to fall in love with him. I know we did things backward, getting married first, but maybe we can find our way forward together. What do you think? Clara felt tears gathering in her eyes, but this time they were happy tears. I think I would like that very much, she said. I think I have already started falling, Xander. You have been so good to me, so patient and kind. You make me feel valued and respected. You make me feel safe. I did not think I could ever trust a man again, but I trust you. Xander's face lit up with joy. You have no idea how happy that makes me, he said. He reached up and gently helped her down from the fence, his hands at her waist. For the first time, Clara did not tense at his touch. Instead, she let herself lean into him slightly, savoring the warmth and solidity of his body. Can I kiss you? Xander asked, his voice rough with emotion. Clara nodded, her heart racing. Xander cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gently stroking her cheeks, and then he lowered his mouth to hers. The kiss was soft, tender, nothing like the harsh, demanding kisses Thomas had forced on her. This was a question, an offering, a promise of gentleness. Clara's hands came up to rest on Xander's chest, feeling his heart beat as rapidly as her own. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. Xander rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed. I am falling in love with you, Clara Morgan Kensington, he whispered. I have been falling since the day you stepped off that stagecoach looking so brave and so afraid all at once. I am falling in love with you too, Clara admitted, the words both terrifying and liberating. I never thought I would be able to say that to anyone again, but here we are. Here we are, Xander echoed and kissed her again. Their courtship was sweet and old-fashioned, even though they already lived under the same roof. Xander brought Clara wildflowers from the fields, their bright colors defying the coming winter. They took long walks in the evenings, talking about everything and nothing, sharing their dreams for the future. Xander taught Clara to ride horseback, his patience unwavering as she learned to trust the animal beneath her. Clara cooked Xander's favorite meals and read to him in the evenings, her voice bringing stories to life in the lamplight. One evening in early November, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset, Clara leaned her head on Xander's shoulder. They had been sitting close more often now, touching casually, holding hands, stealing kisses. It felt natural, right? Like pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. I have been thinking about something, Clara said. What is that? Xander asked, his arm around her shoulders. I have been sleeping in my own room since I arrived, and you have been so respectful of that. But I was wondering if maybe you would like me to move into your room. With you. As your wife in truth, not just in name. Xander went very still. Are you sure? He asked carefully. There is no pressure, Clara. We can wait as long as you need. I am sure, Clara said. She lifted her head to meet his eyes. I love you, Xander. I trust you. I want to share your bed, your life, everything. I want to be your wife fully. I am not afraid anymore, not with you. Xander kissed her deeply, pouring all his love and gratitude into the gesture. I love you too, he said against her lips, more than I can express with words. That night, Clara moved her belongings into Xander's room. Their coming together was tender and careful, Xander constantly checking to make sure Clara was comfortable, that she truly wanted this. Clara found herself responding to his touch with a passion she had not known she was capable of, her body finally freed from the fear that had constrained it for so long. Afterwards, she lay in Xander's arms, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. I never knew it could be like this, she said softly, gentle and loving. Thomas never cared about my comfort or pleasure. It was always about his needs, his desires. Xander's arms tightened around her. That is how it should always be between husband and wife, he said. A partnership, both people caring for each other. What we have, this is real and good and right. Yes, Clara agreed, feeling more whole than she had in years. This is everything I needed and never dared to hope for. Winter came to Wyoming with brutal force, bringing snow and freezing winds that howled across the plains. Clara and Xander spent long evenings by the fire, wrapped in quilts, reading or talking or simply being together. The ranch work slowed somewhat in the cold months, allowing Xander more time at home. He taught Clara to play chess, and she surprised him by being a quick study, soon winning as many games as she lost. They made plans for the spring, discussing improvements to the ranch, the possibility of adding a room to the house if their family should grow. One particularly harsh morning in January, Clara discovered that she had indeed gotten pregnant. She had been feeling queasy in the mornings, her monthly courses had not arrived, and her breasts were tender. She had suspected for a few days, but had wanted to be certain before telling Xander. Now, standing in their bedroom with her hand on her still flat stomach, she felt a complex mixture of joy and fear. She found Xander in the barn, checking on the livestock. He looked up when she entered, his face reddening from the cold. Clara, is everything all right? You should not be out here without a heavier coat. I needed to tell you something, Clara said. Can we talk? Concern flashed across Xander's face, but he nodded and led her to the tack room, which was slightly warmer and more private. What is it? He asked. I am expecting a baby, Clara said, watching his face carefully. We are going to have a child. Xander's expression went through several transformations: shock, delight, wonder, and finally pure joy. A baby? He repeated. Clara, that is wonderful news. We are going to be parents. Relief flooded through Clara. You are happy about this? Happy. I am overjoyed. Xander pulled her into his arms, holding her gently but firmly. This is everything I hoped for when I wrote that advertisement. A wife I love, a child on the way, a real family. You have given me so much, Clara. You have given me just as much, Clara said, her voice thick with emotion. You have given me a reason to trust again, to hope again. You have given me love and safety. This baby is a gift from both of us. They walked back to the house, hand in hand, making plans and dreaming of the future. Clara's pregnancy progressed smoothly, and as her body changed, she found herself marveling at the life growing inside her. Xander was attentive and protective, taking over more of the household chores, insisting that Clara rest whenever she needed. The ranch hands, Sam and Robert, had become aware of the situation and were unfailingly respectful, tipping their hats to Clara whenever they saw her and offering to help with heavy tasks. Spring arrived, bringing warmth and new growth. Clara's belly swelled, and she felt the baby move for the first time one sunny April afternoon. She grabbed Xander's hand and pressed it against her stomach, and his face lit up with wonder when he felt the tiny kicks. That is our child, he said, his voice filled with awe. "Our son or daughter, alive and growing." "I hope they have your eyes," Clara said. "Those beautiful gray eyes." "I hope they have your courage," Xander countered. "Your strength and resilience." In late June of 1879, exactly 1 year after Clara had arrived in Wheatland, she went into labor. Xander sent for the midwife from town, a capable woman named Mrs. Henderson, who had delivered half the babies in the county. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Clara felt like she could not go on, but Xander stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her brow, murmuring encouragement. Finally, as the sun was setting, Clara gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The midwife cleaned him up and placed him in Clara's arms, and she looked down at her son with overwhelming love. He had a shock of dark hair, and when he opened his eyes, she could see they were gray like his father's. "He is perfect," Xander said, his voice choked with emotion. "You are amazing, Clara. Look at what you have done." "Look at what we have done," Clara corrected. She was exhausted but exhilarated, high on the accomplishment of bringing new life into the world. "What should we name him?" They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy but had not quite settled on one. Now, looking at their son, Xander said, "What about James? It was my father's name, James Morgan Kensington." "James," Clara repeated, testing the name. "I like it. James Morgan Kensington it is." The next few months were a blur of sleepless nights and steep learning curves. James was a healthy baby with a strong set of lungs, and he kept both his parents busy. Clara discovered reserves of strength she had not known she possessed, managing the household and caring for a newborn with surprising competence. Xander proved to be a devoted father, taking over with James whenever he could to give Clara a break, changing diapers and walking the floor with a fussy baby without complaint. One evening, when James was about 3 months old, Clara sat in the rocking chair nursing him while Xander prepared dinner. She watched her husband move around the kitchen with easy confidence and felt such a surge of love for him that it nearly took her breath away. This was the life she had dreamed of but never thought she would have, a home filled with love and laughter, a partner who respected and cherished her, a beautiful child to raise together. "What are you thinking about?" Xander asked, catching her gaze. "How lucky I am," Clara said honestly. "How grateful I am that I answered your advertisement, that I took a chance on coming to Wyoming. You saved me, Xander. You gave me a reason to live again." Xander came to kneel beside the rocking chair, his hand gentle on James's downy head. "You saved yourself," he said. "You had the courage to leave, to start over, to trust again despite everything you had been through. I just provided a safe place for you to land, but I am grateful every day that you chose me, that you gave me a chance to prove I was worthy of you." "We are quite a pair," Clara said with a soft laugh, "both thinking we do not deserve the other." "Then maybe we are perfectly matched," Xander said, and kissed her forehead. The years passed in a blur of happiness and hard work. The ranch prospered, allowing Xander to hire additional help and expand his herd. Clara flourished as a wife and mother, her confidence growing with each passing season. She became known in Wheatland as a kind and capable woman, always ready to help a neighbor in need. The nightmares that had plagued her for so long gradually faded, occurring less and less frequently until they finally stopped altogether. When James was 2, Clara became pregnant again. This time, she was less anxious, more confident in her ability to carry and deliver a healthy baby. In the spring of 1882, she gave birth to a daughter, a tiny, perfect thing with Clara's green eyes and a rosebud mouth. They named her Margaret Rose, called her Maggie, and she quickly had her father wrapped around her little finger. James proved to be a good big brother, surprisingly gentle with the new baby. He would bring her his toys and pat her head, saying "Baby Maggie" with great seriousness. Clara and Xander watched their children together with pride and wonder, marveling at the family they had created. One summer evening, when James was 4 and Maggie was 2, the whole family sat on the porch watching fireflies dance in the gathering dusk. James chased the glowing insects while Maggie clapped her hands from her father's lap. Clara leaned against Xander, his arm around her shoulders, and felt a contentment so deep it was almost painful. "Do you ever think about those early days?" Xander asked. "When you first arrived, so frightened and hurt?" "Sometimes," Clara admitted, "but it feels like a different lifetime, like those things happened to a different person. The woman I was then and the woman I am now are not quite the same." "You are stronger now," Xander said, "more sure of yourself, but you were always strong, Clara. You just needed time to remember it." "I had help remembering," Clara said, tilting her face up to kiss him. "A very patient, very loving man who dressed my wounds every day, even the ones no one could see." "That is what you do when you love someone," Xander said simply. "You help them heal. You show up day after day, and you prove through your actions that they are safe, that they are cherished. That is what marriage should be." "Yes," Clara agreed. She looked out at her children, at her home, at the vast Wyoming sky painted in shades of pink and gold. "That is exactly what it should be." More years passed, bringing both joys and challenges. There were harsh winters and dry summers, sick animals, and difficult harvests. Clara suffered 2 miscarriages between pregnancies, grief that she and Xander bore together, supporting each other through the loss. But they also had more children, a third son they named William in 1884 and another daughter, Sarah, in 1887. Their family grew, their home filled with noise and laughter and the organized chaos of raising 4 children. James grew into a serious, responsible boy who loved working alongside his father on the ranch. Maggie was bright and curious, constantly asking questions and getting into everything. William was the gentlest of the children, with a natural affinity for animals. Sarah, the baby, was spirited and fearless, already showing signs that she would keep her parents on their toes. Clara and Xander's love deepened with each passing year, maturing into something solid and unshakable. They had their disagreements, of course, the occasional argument about money or child rearing or ranch decisions. But they had learned to fight fair, to listen to each other, to compromise, and forgive. Xander never once raised his voice in anger at Clara, never made her feel unsafe or threatened. He kept his promise every single day, proving through his actions that he was a man worthy of her trust. On a warm June evening in 1888, exactly 10 years after Clara had arrived in Wheatland, the couple sat together on the porch after putting the children to bed. Clara was 42 now, her hair generously streaked with gray, laugh lines crinkling around her eyes. Xander was 47, his dark hair thinning slightly, his body still strong from years of physical labor. They held hands, their fingers intertwined with the ease of long familiarity. 10 years, Clara said softly. "Can you believe it has been 10 years? Some days it feels like a lifetime," Xander said. "Other days it feels like you just arrived yesterday, stepping off that stagecoach looking so brave and so scared." "I was terrified," Clara admitted. "I had no idea what I was getting into, whether I had made a terrible mistake. But you proved me wrong so quickly. You showed me what a real man was like, what a real marriage could be." "You gave me everything I was looking for," Xander said, "a partner, a best friend, the mother of my children. You made this house a home. You made my life complete." Clara squeezed his hand. "I still have scars, you know," she said. "Some wounds never fully close, not completely. I still have moments when something triggers an old memory, when I feel that flutter of panic. But you have been so patient, so steady. You have dressed those wounds every day, just by being yourself, by loving me unconditionally." "That is all I ever wanted to do," Xander said. "Love you, take care of you, show you what you deserved all along." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the ranch settling for the night. The cattle lowing softly in the distance, an owl hooting from the barn, the whisper of wind through the grass. This was their life, built together from nothing, sustained by love and commitment and hard work. Do you know what I am most grateful for? Clara asked. What is that? That I found the courage to answer your advertisement, Clara said. That despite everything I had been through, despite all my fear and pain, I chose to take one more chance. I chose hope over despair, and it led me here to you, to this beautiful life we have created. I am grateful for that too, Xander said. Every single day I thank God that you chose me, that you trusted me enough to give me a chance. You have made me happier than I ever thought possible. Clara leaned her head on his shoulder, and Xander kissed the top of her head. They stayed that way until the stars came out, two souls who had found each other against all odds, two wounded people who had healed together. Their love story had not been easy or conventional, but it was real and deep and lasting. It was everything a love story should be. Inside the house, their children slept peacefully, safe and loved, unaware of the struggles their mother had overcome to give them this life. Someday, when they were older, Clara would tell them her story. She would explain how she had survived something terrible, how she had found the strength to start over, how their father had shown her what true love looked like. She would teach them to be kind, to be patient, to understand that everyone carries wounds, some visible and some hidden. She would make sure they grew up knowing they were cherished, that their home was a sanctuary, that love was meant to heal, not harm. But for now, in this perfect moment, Clara simply sat with her husband and counted her blessings. She thought about the mail order bride she had been, arriving in Wyoming with nothing but a carpetbag and a heart full of fear. She thought about the woman she had become, strong and confident and deeply loved. The transformation had not happened overnight. It had taken years of patient care, years of Xander dressing her wounds, both literal and figurative, years of learning to trust again. Some wounds never fully closed, it was true. Clara still carried the scars of her first marriage, the memories of pain and fear. But Xander had taught her that scars were not weaknesses. They were proof of survival, evidence of strength. And more importantly, he had shown her that past wounds did not have to define her future. With the right person, with genuine love and unwavering support, even the deepest hurts could heal enough to let light back in. As autumn arrived and the children grew older, the Kensington family continued to thrive. James, now 14, was already proving himself invaluable on the ranch, working alongside his father with skill beyond his years. Maggie, 12, had developed a love of learning and spent every free moment reading anything she could get her hands on. Clara saw so much of herself in her daughter and encouraged her intellectual curiosity. William, at 10, had a special way with horses, able to calm even the most skittish animals. 8-year-old Sarah was the family's firecracker, keeping everyone entertained with her boundless energy and dramatic pronouncements. Clara had long since taken over all the ranch's bookkeeping, and under her careful management, the finances flourished. Xander had expanded the operation significantly, and they now employed 6 ranch hands year-round, with additional help hired during busy seasons. The house had been expanded twice, adding more bedrooms and a proper indoor bathroom. The modern plumbing Xander had promised all those years ago finally installed. The couple had also become pillars of the Wheatland community. Xander served on the town council, and Clara had organized a women's charitable society that helped families in need. She had a particular soft spot for women in difficult marriages, and she quietly provided assistance and resources to those who needed to escape dangerous situations. She never spoke publicly about her own experiences with Thomas, but those who needed to know seemed to sense her understanding, and she helped several women find the courage to leave abusive husbands. One afternoon, a young woman arrived at the ranch asking for Clara. Her name was Elizabeth, and she was covered in bruises, her arm clearly broken. She had heard that Mrs. Kensington helped women like her, women who needed a way out. Clara brought her inside, tended to her injuries as best she could, then had Xander drive them both to the doctor in town. She helped Elizabeth press charges against her husband, something that was difficult in 1888, but not impossible with the right support. She provided Elizabeth with money and a train ticket to Denver, where she had family who would take her in. As they waited at the train station, Elizabeth grabbed Clara's hand. "Thank you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You saved my life. I do not know how I can ever repay you." "You do not need to repay me," Clara said gently. "Just promise me that you will build a good life for yourself, that you will never let anyone make you feel worthless again, that you will remember your own strength." "I promise," Elizabeth said. "Did someone help you once? Is that why you help women like me?" Clara hesitated, then nodded. "Someone gave me a chance at a new life when I desperately needed one. He showed me what love was supposed to look like. I am just trying to pay that forward." After Elizabeth's train departed, Xander pulled Clara into his arms. "You are remarkable," he said. "The way you help these women, the compassion you show them. I am so proud of you." "I remember what it felt like to be trapped," Clara said. "To think there was no way out. If I can help even one woman find her way to freedom, then everything I went through has meaning." "You turn your pain into purpose," Xander observed. "That is one of the things I love most about you." Clara smiled up at him. "I learned from the best. You turned your loneliness into something positive by reaching out, by offering someone a chance at a better life. We are a good team, Xander Kensington." "The best team," he agreed, and kissed her there in the train station, not caring who saw. The years continued to roll by, bringing change and growth. The children grew into young adults with their own dreams and aspirations. James, steady and reliable, took over more and more of the ranch operations, showing himself to be a natural leader. When he turned 21, Xander made him a full partner in the business. Maggie shocked everyone by announcing her intention to attend college, and Clara and Xander supported her decision wholeheartedly, proud of their daughter's ambition. William discovered a talent for veterinary medicine and apprenticed himself to the town's veterinarian, learning to care for sick and injured animals. Sarah, true to form, declared she was going to see the world before settling down and saved every penny she could toward that goal. Clara and Xander watched their children spread their wings with a mixture of pride and bittersweet nostalgia. The house that had once rung with childish laughter grew quieter, but it was a peaceful quiet, the satisfaction of a job well done. In 1896, 18 years after Clara first arrived in Wheatland, Xander surprised her with a trip. He had arranged for James to manage the ranch for 2 weeks, and he took Clara on the train to San Francisco. It was the farthest either of them had ever traveled, and they explored the city like excited children, marveling at the tall buildings and the ocean, eating in restaurants, and staying in a real hotel. One evening, as they walked along the beach watching the sunset over the Pacific, Xander took Clara's hand. "I wanted to give you this," he said. "A proper honeymoon, even if it is nearly 2 decades late. You never got to have the courtship you deserved, the romance, the adventure. I wanted to give you at least a taste of it." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. "You have given me everything I ever wanted," she said. "Romance is not about grand gestures or expensive trips. It is about the everyday moments, the way you bring me coffee every morning, the way you still hold my hand, the way you have shown up for me every single day for 18 years. That is the greatest romance I could imagine." "Still," Xander said, "you deserve to see the world, to have experiences beyond the ranch. I want to give you everything, Clara." "You already have," Clara insisted. "You gave me yourself, your love, your patience. You gave me children and a home and a purpose. You gave me back my life. What more could I possibly want?" They stood on that beach until the stars came out, holding each other, grateful for every moment that had led them to this point. The next morning, they sent telegrams to all their children, telling them about their adventures, sharing their happiness. The responses were warm and loving, confirming what Clara had always known. They had raised good humans who understood the value of love and family. When they returned to Wyoming, Clara threw herself back into her life with renewed energy. She expanded her charitable work, opening a small fund to help women escape dangerous marriages. She worked with local lawyers and judges to ensure that women had legal recourse against abusive husbands. It was slow, frustrating work in an era when women had few rights, but Clara was persistent. She had learned that patience and determination could overcome almost any obstacle. Xander continued to support her fully in these endeavors, contributing money to her fund and using his position on the town council to advocate for better protections for vulnerable people. They made a formidable team, respected and admired throughout the community. Young couples often came to them for advice, seeing in their long marriage a model of what love should be. In 1900, as the new century dawned, Clara and Xander celebrated their daughter Maggie's wedding. She had graduated from college, a remarkable achievement for a woman in that era, and had fallen in love with a professor of literature. The wedding was held at the ranch, with friends and family gathering from across Wyoming and beyond. Clara watched her daughter pledge her love to a man who clearly adored her and felt her heart swell with joy. "We did well," Xander whispered in her ear as they watched Maggie dance with her new husband. "We did," Clara agreed. "All our children are happy and healthy, following their own paths. What more could we ask for?" "Grandchildren," Xander said with a grin. "I am ready to spoil some grandchildren." Clara laughed. "Patience, my love. They will come in time." And they did. James married a rancher's daughter from a neighboring county, and within a year, Clara and Xander welcomed their first grandchild, a sturdy boy they named Xander James, called XJ Maggie, and her husband had a daughter the following year. William, who had indeed become a skilled veterinarian, married a gentle school teacher, and they had twins, a boy and a girl. Even Sarah, who had spent several years traveling before finally settling down, returned to Wheatland with a husband in tow, an adventurer she had met in Colorado. The ranch house, which had grown quiet, filled with noise again as grandchildren visited. Clara found immense joy in being a grandmother, in spoiling little ones, and sending them home to their parents. She and Xander would sit on the porch in the evenings, grandchildren playing at their feet, and marvel at the family they had created. On a summer evening in 1908, 30 years after Clara had stepped off that stagecoach, the entire extended family gathered at the ranch for a celebration. It was Clara and Xander's 30th anniversary. Though they had been married on paper from the very beginning, they chose to celebrate the anniversary of Clara's arrival, the day their life together had truly begun. Long tables were set up under the trees, laden with food prepared by multiple generations of family. Children ran through the grass, their laughter echoing across the plains. Adult children and their spouses mingled, sharing stories and catching up. Clara and Xander sat together at the head of the table, surrounded by the abundant proof of their love. James stood to make a toast, raising his glass. "To my parents," he said, his voice carrying across the gathering, "who taught us what real love looks like, who showed us that marriage is about partnership, respect, and unwavering support, who built not just a successful ranch, but a legacy of kindness and strength. We are all here because of the love you share. Thank you for showing us the way." "To Clara and Xander," everyone chorused, raising their glasses. Clara wiped tears from her eyes, overwhelmed by the moment. Xander put his arm around her, pulling her close. "Look at what we built," he said softly. "All of this, from a simple advertisement in a newspaper." "From a terrified woman and a lonely rancher," Clara added. "From two wounded people who found each other and learned to heal together." "Your wounds," Xander said, touching her face gently. "Do they ever bother you anymore?" Clara considered the question. It had been years since she had a nightmare about Thomas, years since she had flinched at an unexpected touch or felt that old familiar fear. "No," she said honestly. "You dressed them every day, with your kindness and your patience, until they finally healed. I will always have scars, but they no longer hurt. You taught me that I could be whole again." "You were always whole," Xander said. You just needed time and space to remember it. They sat together as the celebration continued around them, two people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful. Their love story had been unconventional, starting with a business arrangement and blossoming into something deep and true. But perhaps that was fitting. The best love stories were not always the easiest ones. Sometimes they were the stories of two broken people who chose to heal together, who showed up day after day, who proved through their actions that love was stronger than fear. As the sun set over the Wyoming plains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Clara leaned into Xander's embrace and felt perfectly, completely at peace. She thought about the young woman she had been, arriving in Wheatland with nothing but a carpet bag and a heart full of hope mixed with terror. She thought about all the years since, the challenges overcome, the joys celebrated, the life built from the ground up. Some wounds never fully closed, it was true. But with the right person, with genuine love and commitment, those wounds could heal enough that they no longer defined you. They became simply part of your story, evidence of what you had survived, proof of your strength. And in the end, that was what mattered most. Not that you had been wounded, but that you had healed, that you had loved, that you had lived. Clara's story could have ended so differently. She could have stayed in Missouri, trapped in a cycle of abuse until it killed her. She could have let fear win, let Thomas's cruelty destroy her capacity for trust and love. But she had made a different choice. She had taken a chance on a stranger's advertisement, had traveled halfway across the country, had opened her wounded heart one more time. And that choice had given her everything: a loving husband, beautiful children, a purposeful life, and the chance to help other women find their own paths to freedom. As night fell and lanterns were lit, the family gathered around a bonfire. Stories were told, songs were sung, memories were shared. Clara sat surrounded by her children and grandchildren, by the man who had loved her faithfully for 3 decades and knew that this was what happiness looked like. Not the absence of pain or struggle, but the presence of love strong enough to overcome anything. Xander caught her eye across the fire and smiled, that same gentle smile that had greeted her on her first day in Wheatland. Clara smiled back, her heart full to overflowing. They had been through so much together, and they would face whatever came next, side by side, as they always had. The years ahead would bring both joys and sorrows, as life always did. They would bury friends and welcome more grandchildren. They would see their children face their own challenges and triumphs. They would grow old together, their bodies slowing, but their love remaining constant. And when the time came, many years later, they would leave this world knowing they had lived fully, loved deeply, and made a difference. But on this perfect summer night, surrounded by the family they had created and the love they had nurtured, Clara and Xander simply existed in the moment. They held hands across the fire, two people who had found each other in the vast wilderness of the American West and had chosen to build something beautiful together. The mail-order bride had indeed arrived with wounds that never fully closed, but the cowboy had dressed them every single day with patience and kindness and unwavering love until the pain faded and only the strength remained. And that, Clara thought, as she looked around at her beloved family, was the greatest love story of all. Not a fairy tale of perfection, but a real story of two imperfect people who chose each other, day after day, year after year, building a life of meaning and purpose together. In the end, that was all anyone could hope for: to love and be loved, to heal and help others heal, to leave the world a little better than they found it. As the celebration wound down and family members began preparing to depart or settle in for the night, Clara and Xander took a final walk around their property. They visited the barn where Xander had first taught Clara to ride, the garden where she had planted those first herbs 30 years ago, the corral where he had worked with the skittish filly while she watched from the fence. "Remember when all of this was just a dream?" Clara asked, gesturing to encompass everything: the thriving ranch, the expanded house, the legacy they had built. I remember when you were just a name on a letter, Xander replied. I had no idea that answering your response would change my entire life. It changed mine too, Clara said. You saved me, Xander. You gave me a reason to keep going when I thought I had none left. We saved each other, Xander corrected gently. You gave my life meaning, purpose. You turned a house into a home, a lonely man into a husband and father. You taught me what real love was, what it meant to truly partner with someone. They returned to the porch, their special place where they had spent countless evenings over the years, and settled into their familiar spots. The night was clear and warm, the stars scattered across the sky like diamonds. In the distance, they could hear the soft sounds of cattle and the occasional whinny of a horse. The ranch was quiet, peaceful, exactly as it should be. What do you think the next 30 years will bring? Clara asked, only half joking. She was 54 now, and Xander was 59. They had already lived longer than many people in this harsh landscape. Whatever comes, we will face it together, Xander said. That has always been our strength. We are a team, Clara. Nothing can break that. Nothing, Clara agreed. She took his hand, their fingers interlocking with practiced ease. I love you, Xander Kensington. I have loved you for 30 years, and I will love you until my last breath. And I love you, Clara Morgan Kensington, Xander replied. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Thank you for taking a chance on a lonely rancher all those years ago. Thank you for being patient with a frightened woman, Clara countered. Thank you for showing me that not all men are cruel, that love can heal even the deepest wounds. They sat together under the stars, two souls intertwined, two hearts beating as one. Their love story had begun with an advertisement and a leap of faith, but it had grown into something far greater than either of them could have imagined. They had faced hardship and heartache, celebrated triumphs and milestones, raised children, and watched them flourish. Through it all, their love had remained constant, a foundation upon which everything else was built. As Clara rested her head on Xander's shoulder, she sent up a silent prayer of gratitude. Gratitude for the courage to leave Missouri, for the chance to start over, for the man who had shown her what real love looked like. She thought of all the women she had helped over the years, women who had found their own paths to freedom and healing and felt proud of the legacy she was building beyond just her family. The mail-order bride had indeed arrived with wounds that never fully closed, scars that would always be part of her story. But the cowboy had dressed them every day, not with bandages and medicine, but with love and patience and unwavering support. He had shown her through his actions day after day, year after year, that she was worthy of kindness, deserving of respect, capable of being loved. And in doing so, he had helped her heal in ways she never thought possible. Their story was not unique in its hardships. Many people face trials and tribulations, but it was unique in its outcome. Two wounded people who had found each other and chosen to heal together, who had built a life of meaning and purpose, who had created a family that would carry their legacy forward for generations. That was the real magic, not that they had avoided pain, but that they had transformed it into something beautiful. As the night deepened and the moon rose high in the sky, Clara and Xander finally made their way inside. They climbed the stairs to their room, the room they had shared for nearly 3 decades, and prepared for bed with the comfortable routine of long marriage. Xander held Clara close as they settled under the covers, her back to his chest, his arm around her waist. "Good night, my love," he whispered into her hair. "Good night," Clara replied, safe and warm and completely at peace. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys, as every day did, but they would face it together, as they had faced everything for the past 30 years. The mail-order bride and the cowboy, the woman with wounds and the man who dressed them, partners in every sense of the word. Their love story, unconventional and beautiful, was complete in all the ways that mattered. And as they drifted off to sleep, surrounded by the life they had built together, they knew with absolute certainty that they had found exactly what they had been searching for in each other, in this place, in this life they had chosen to share.